Sounds good.
Okay, just introduce yourself, please.
Santiago Lopez, Superintendent of New America Schools.
We gotta turn it. Robert Newman, Principal, New America School, Aurora.
And Nicole Jabowski, PD Coordinator for New America Schools.
And wait. Yeah. That's perfect. Look at that. Yeah, Chris is good. Okay. Wow, this is awesome. I am so excited, you have no idea. Why am I so excited? Because last year I couldn't have gotten my master's. Last year I couldn't have taken a map test, messed around with it, and turned it in for a master's project. But because of AI, I'm subtitling this, A Triumph of AI Over Injustice. This is amazing that we are able to do this now. Absolutely amazing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a little bit of background about...
Yeah, you wanna get it, there you go.
Yeah?
You see
Okay.
it now,
A little bit about how this movement came to be and all the, the progress that we have made over the last 50 years. You got it?
That gives you a little breathing room.
Thanks. So let's look at the introduction. More than 50 years ago, Now versus Nichols brought the issue of accommodations for multilingual learners to the forefront. Are either one of you familiar with this?
Yes.
Yeah. So they won, and because they won, the Chinese in San Francisco were given accommodations. Many have benefited. I have absolutely no idea why we have such a problem with it in the state of Colorado. So I have taken on the frustration of those of us constantly protest the unfairness of taking standardized assessments exclusively in English. I've taught brilliant multilingual students, yet their math scores indicate only a 4th or 5th grade reading level. This is both humiliating and blatantly inaccurate. How can administrators and teachers design an appropriate curriculum when the only available data suggests these students belong in elementary school? Moreover, how can they help students graduate and enroll in college knowing their skills are deemed insufficient for higher education? These questions are my catalysts. We know our students, we know how bright they are, but unfortunately, as Mr. Newman has pointed out many times, we have to construct a curriculum on the data that we have. And if we don't have anything else, then this can be a serious problem. So my research question was, will an alternative reading assessment with no modified English and a multilingual glossary give Lexile levels higher than, lower than, or similar to the Lexile levels determined by the RIT scores of the December 2024 MAP reading test? So far, so good? Mm-hmm. Mr. Newman, would you like some paper to jot some notes down on?
No, I'm good.
You're good?
Appreciate you.
So what is modified English? Are you familiar with this? Okay. So it's an accommodation that was tested and proven to be efficient by this Liu et al. 2020. It is a strategy where a passage is rewritten so that it is easier for multilingual learners to either try and translate into their own language or to understand in English. On the alternative assessment, the 6th and 8th grade reading passages were modified, but I wanted to challenge students at the 10th and 12th grade levels. I thought, you know what? If they're capable of reading and understanding what they're reading, let them do only with a glossary. Like there were words there that were highlighted that were translatable, but I did not want to modify because I was like, I wanted to challenge them. So you can you see that, or I'll blow it up? See that? Nope, that's not gonna work. This is the only accommodation, the modified English is the only accommodation that actually worked all the time. Now, some strategies like pictures work for some people, and in fact, one of my students, whose language is not in Google Translate, asked what a coral reef is, and I was more than happy to show him a picture. But everything, they've tried everything, and this was the only thing that worked every single time, consistently. This is my favorite one. There is this genius at the University of North Carolina. Her name is Dr. Micheline Shahoub-Davil, and she is from Lebanon, and she is a linguist, and she celebrates what we call the strength approach. The strength approach is kind of like a 21st century take on all the mistakes we made in the 20th century. Monolingual standards, subtractive perspective, taking languages and isolating them instead of integrating them. Idealized native speaker, hello. Hello, yeah. How many of us were actually saying, well, you should learn a little bit of Spanish just in case you have to go to Puerto Rico or in case you have to go to Mexico, but don't get fluent, that's too hard. And we were shied away from that. Interlanguage development versus heteroglossic acquisition. If you know a word better in another language, why not help kids do that? They already do it. They already know how to do all of this. This translanguage is amazing. These kids out of Africa and out of the Middle East, my goodness gracious. They're like, I like that word better in Tigrinya, or I like that word better in Persian or Dari. So they can use it. But one thing that is really amazing with this is that obviously us teachers and administrators aren't going to switch to this side overnight. This is too difficult. We don't know how to do this. We don't know how to integrate languages. But because of AI, it's possible now. Within the next 2 years, this is all going to be possible. Okay, so constructing the test, I don't know why I just did that. So all I did was I went into magic school and I said, can I have a math style reading test with 5 multiple choice questions at the 6th grade level? That's it. I then used the same prompt to obtain 8th, 10th, and 12th grade level reading passages, creating a 20 problem test. The 6th grade questions were worth 1 point each. The 8th grade questions were worth 2 points each. 10th grade questions were worth 3 points each, and 12th grade questions were worth 4 points each. I also asked magic school to analyze the test to determine any cultural biases, but none were found. So that is another huge thing. Because on all American standardized tests, there's always a cultural bias, whether they need to do it or not. It's always a problem. There's always cultural bias. With magic school, with any AI generators, they're extremely sensitive to this issue, and they can fix things. So how it was graded, scores between 0 and 11, said you're not up to the 6th grade level yet. By the way, we had no students at this, in that range from 0 to 11. Even our lower performing students were able to get over 11 points. Scores between 12 and 25 is 8th grade, 25 to 37 is 10th grade, and 38 is 12th or higher. So out of possible 50 points, this is how we categorize things. Okay? And I forgot, let me get these tests. So you can see what's going on. And here's the glossary that was used.
And this content was created using magic school?
Yes. Yeah, I'll give you a minute, look.
How did you create the glossary?
Magic school. And there was actually a problem with that. The kids who speak Amharic, the translations were bad. So they came up, they were like, this is not the right word, and I just used Google Translate for them and it was fine. Yeah, you okay? So the master spreadsheet for quantitative data. Look at these numbers. I like to look at the numbers just because I'm a math head, but I also like to look at the grade levels. So we have some of these are top students scoring low. A couple of those examples are Anna. John is still low for him. Donnie, very low for him. Okay? But really, why we needed it is because of these guys. We need to know who is at a kindergarten grade level, who is at a first, second grade level. Because unfortunately, when these kids are grouped with the rest of the class, and the rest of the class is not scoring so high themselves, we can't identify true reading problems. We kind of have to say, well, they all need to learn more English. A 6th grade reading level and a 1st grade reading level, in elementary school, that's huge. But when we're looking at 17, 18, 19-year-old kids, it's just like, how do I make sense out of all this data? This is crazy. And then over here, we can see how the Lexile levels and the grade levels jumped. I have 4 students at 12th grade or higher. Yeah, 4 students out of 17 who took the test. 12th grade or higher. The average score was 9th grade. That's our average. The average score for the MAP test was only 2nd grade. Yeah. But let me show
The data on the right side is
this is the exactly. This is the alternative test. So now we can. I love the visuals. They're rather dramatic. I know. And the first time I showed you, Mr. Newman, this is like you better be able to explain this. This is crazy. But I mean, when you think about it, and I have this documented as well. When you think about the low morale kids, like I know too many kids who are just like, why even bother? These tests are hard. Why even bother when we struggle and we get told we're at 5th grade reading level? And some kids, when I did the qualitative survey up at Thornton, some kids actually believed that was their true intelligence. I mean, that's a serious SEL issue. Even Mr. Nelson pointed out, he's like, you know what, if you're struggling academically, or if you're pushing your hardest and you're getting low results, that is an SEL factor. That is totally social emotional. Like, how in the world am I supposed to be a good teacher and, input confidence into my students when I have to tell them something like this? And, in our PD meetings, when Jennifer is going over the data, the academic issues are put away to the side. Oh, just focus on the growth. Don't focus on the academics. I'm like, I'm so sorry, but we need a full picture. This is really, really hard to see. And the reality of it was, for the last 3 years, we actually could not do anything about it. We can't just call up MAP tests and say, please give me one of your tests so I can fool around with it. It's not done. You can't do it. But because of AI, we have the potential to really fix this problem. So, analyzing the data, what happened? Last year, administering such an assessment would have been impossible because we couldn't take a MAP test and mess around with it. But thanks to the refinements of artificial intelligence over the past year, I could prompt Magic School AI and obtain 4 reading tests at 4 different grade levels and provide the desired accommodations. Multiple explanations for the drastic results. ELD2 students know enough English to grasp the general information presented in each passage. The translations of key words gave them the ability to interpret passages at deeper levels, so they were able to handle the 10th and the 12th grade reading levels. They were able to see, oh, I can put these pieces together and make sense out of this passage. All of these students, and Nicole, I'm not lying, I went into Ms. Maria's class for the ELD2 period, and every single one of them said they were more than willing to take this test for me. More than willing. And so on the test day, it was a Thursday, it was during advisory period, I just brought them all into my classroom. Only one person was absent. And in our school, that is huge. Only one person was absent, and when he came in on the following Monday, he immediately said, can I take the test? I said, absolutely. Every single student. That's because I mean, obviously, we're into relationships around here. This is what drives our education. This is how we bond with our students, figure out what they need, and say, okay, I'm going to do my best to serve you. So students were also generally interested in demonstrating their intelligence. On the map test, students are not permitted to try harder problems unless they correctly answer the easier ones. On the alternative assessment, I asked students to try all the questions. So if a student had prior knowledge about a certain topic that wasn't at the 6th grade level but at the 10th grade level, then all of a sudden that student could answer questions at the 10th grade level because they knew about it. And then this one here, the student who achieved the higher score answered a 6th grade question wrong. But he made no mistakes on the 12th grade level questions. He got 2 wrong, and one of them was at the 6th grade level. He would have never been even given a 12th grade level question to answer. The way the alternative assessment was weighted helped students who answered questions for the 10th and 12th grade passages correctly get their scores up. Because remember, 12th grade scores were worth 4 points, and 10th grade were worth 3 points. So if you knew a little bit, or if you could intelligently guess, like a lot of us do, then you could get a higher score. And then also a big factor is the morale at the school during math week. A lot of kids don't want to come in, they have to be pulled later, to take these math tests. And so we don't get their best effort. Our kids work hard. I have seen amazing, amazing effort from all our students. So mathematical analysis, I really want to get into this a little bit. When, an SAT company or a MAP test, when they put together this test, these are some of the questions that they have to look at. Do the questions address every level of Bloom's taxonomy? This is fundamental. Is there an appropriate level of difficulty? Do the questions and passages correspond to the national and state standards for the subject? This is mandatory. They have to be included in this. And then the last one, is the data collected normally distributed? Any idea what that means? Normal distribution of data? Okay, so I want to show you. Maybe you could manipulate that phone so you could follow me. Or I'll do it over here. Okay, no, I'll show you. Okay, this is your average. We call it the mean. Okay? When we find the median, we're only using those 2 things, the mean and the median. So for the MAP test, the mean was approximately 2.6. But the median was way back here, about 2.3. That means that the test was too hard for our students. There were more students scoring below average. Okay? Now, the mean for the alternative assessment was, I think 9.6, give or take. But the median was 10. So more students were scoring above average. Now, this is called skewed. And I'm going to go into the numbers. 2 measures, the mean and the median, are used to gauge normal distribution. If the mean is greater than the median by less than 0.5, so that was the case with the MAP score, of course. It was very meticulously put together so that would work. We don't call it skewed. If something is skewed, like the alternative assessment, it looks like this, with this being the mean. And that just means too easy. Okay, can we fix that? Absolutely, we can fix that. Okay, but that's what we're talking about. This would be the MAP test, this would be the alternative test. Yeah? Okay. If the median is less, okay, so this is the 0.5 rule. If there's less than a 0.5 difference, they call it relatively normal. The mean was 2.8, my bad. And the median was 2.5. The difference is less than 0.5, so the data is considered normally distributed, but slightly skewed. Not enough to call it abnormal or off. On the 2025, the mean was 9.4 and the median was 10. Difference is 0.59. That's not too big of a skew, but it's still considered skewed. One thing we have to remember is I did modify the English on the 6th and 8th grade passages. Might have made it too easy. And also, the size of the data can cause skews. Usually when you take a sample, SAT, they're gonna have more than, 500,000. But usually we like it more than 30. So we'll have to consider that next time when we make refinements. It should be more than 30 for the number of students taking it. We only had 17. Is the survey that I took up at Thornton. And we've gone over these a little bit. The reason I've highlighted numbers 9 and 10 is because obviously that's a concern. If they think that the MAP tests actually show their intelligence and that the results are fair, then they're being, I don't want to say lied to, but they're being misinformed. Or they're just not being told the whole picture because teachers are scared. And you know what? I think I was a little nervous too. I have to tell you that the American testing system is actually saying, it's actually putting together an image of you that's not altogether flattering. Okay, so statement number 1, let me scroll down a little bit. MAP tests create very high levels of anxiety. So you can see 22, not too bad, but 11 out of 42 students were like, they scare the crap out of me. MAP tests help me see how much I have learned. Isn't that beautiful? Look at that, 23 agree. They really do want to learn. Only, well, if we put that together, we have 27 students out of 42 saying they really help. They really help me think. If I did not have to take MAP tests, I would feel more confident about applying to colleges. 19 said, I don't know. So I don't know how, that's not like definitive data, but it's definitely something that should be thought about. 13% out of 42 are saying it's shaking my confidence. I don't know if I want to apply to colleges. MAP tests should be in my language. 24 were neutral. Remember, some of our students are illiterate in their own languages. So that could be that. MAP tests challenge me to think very hard. Aww. We got 21 students willing to think really hard. MAP tests do not matter to me. Only 20 disagree. I'd probably like that number to be a little higher. That's less than 50%. School is important to me. Holy cow. Awesome families up at Thornton. School is important to me. I do well on my tests and classes. This is the key number here. 26 out of 42 means only about 62% didn't think that it was important. But yeah, this is kind of huge. And then after, I interviewed our students to see how they were doing. My score could have been higher if I had gotten enough sleep last night. Hello. Remember, this is out of 17 students. My score could have been higher if I knew all the words in English. Hello, 15. The glossary was very helpful. Remember, this is because some students, the translations were bad. The difficulty, but I like this, the difficulty level was the same as that of the MAP reading test. 5 out of 17 said that they agreed. It was about the same. The MAP tests are hard, so this is really lovely. The difficulty level was higher. I have 2 students who actually thought it was more difficult. The difficulty level was lower, only about 7 disagreed with that. Based on I gotta move Santiago a little bit. Okay. Based on my score, I think I am college ready. 7 out of 17 disagree. They don't want to go to college, they don't think they're ready. If we don't know this, how in the world can we address this problem? We got 5 out of 17 that say, yes, I think I'm college ready. I do not understand why the MAP tests do not have these accommodations. Only 4 agreed with that. I like that. I really did. I do not understand why the MAP tests do not have. Well, obviously we need something like AI to get it going. I think I can handle more challenging reading material in my class, 10 out of 17, more than 50%. I am angry about MAP tests, or I feel good about my score, 10 out of 17. And the additional statement was, yes, I'm very angry. Very angry. And you know what? God love him for being that angry. Sometimes you just gotta show things off. Alright, let me go back. Poverty equals low achievement stereotype. Oh, thank you. Yeah. Well, I went to school in Camden. If you know anything about New Jersey, that is not a good thing. That is a very, very bad, scary thing for a white woman to go to Rutgers in Camden. And guess what? While I was there, part of their curriculum for education was I had to do what they call a practicum, a little different than student teaching, but I was still in the school buildings. And one had to be in a wealthy school, and one had to be in the poor school like Camden High. You think you have attendance problems at this school. At that school, 25% showed up daily, 25% of the teachers showed up daily. I mean, this is a serious problem. And the total, this is the hard part. The total cost per student that my taxes and my dad's taxes were paying, $25,000 per student, and they were not even coming to school. Our property taxes were $2,000 a quarter. That is no joke. And so, what does that do when you have middle class and wealthy people being taxed out of their minds? And this is the problem. Well, of course they're not gonna take it out on the middle class. They're gonna take it out on the poor. They're gonna say you're a waste of time, you're a waste of money. And so we get this poverty equals low achievement stereotype because it's a burden on us tax-wise, and we have nobody else to take it out on. And the results back it up. Kids don't want to come to school, they don't want to learn. Of course their scores are going to be in the gutter, of course. Unfortunately though, we want to perpetuate that image. And that's the problem. Why is it not enough to say our kids are different? The stereotype does not apply. All of us contribute to this stereotype. We see somebody on the streets who's homeless, in the back of our minds we're thinking, oh, that poor guy, I bet he never went to high school or he never graduated. Or the kids in prison, right? The school to prison pipeline, it's famous. And this is the poverty connection. But why is it not enough to say, but so important to say our kids are different? Our kids are different. I had a really good chat with one of our students that took the test. And I said, you know what, I bet back in Ethiopia, your dad probably made a fine living for you and the kids. You had food on your table. You never had to apply for financial aid for anything. But once you come to the United States, all of a sudden, you get hit by the currency that, oh my goodness gracious, what is it between Ethiopia and the United States? It's ridiculous. And so now all of a sudden you find yourself poor. And all of a sudden, we have MAP scores that correspond to our image of what a poor school should do. And I was like, and because you volunteered to take this test, we can actually say our kids are different. Our kids are really different. They're amazing. And yeah, I come to tears when I talk about them. They're absolutely amazing. Right? For the last 3 years, I have felt slammed by men and Latino parents. This is true. Who insist that their children should only attend school until they are 15 and then it is time to work. But what has paid off? What has changed? Yes, I say my prayers. And we have now Latino African students who are driven, they are motivated, they want to graduate, they want to show us how smart they are. Qualitative data show that there are students who are not happy with their scores. I love that. I love having those 2 students who scored low saying, no, I'm not happy, I know I can do better. Yeah, this is beautiful. And because they know that the test was almost fair, I'm going to say, I think it needs a little bit of tweaking, but almost fair, they feel motivated. They don't feel slammed by a testing system. So this is what I would like to discuss with both of you. And Santiago, can you see this okay? Oh, I'm muted. It's okay. So okay, cool. Do MAP tests help teach students how to take standardized tests? Was the reason that they were scoring so high on the alternative assessment because they learned some strategies from taking the MAP test. I actually think for some students it really helped. Do MAP tests help some students persevere even though they understand their scores will most likely not reflect their intelligence? Standardized tests are typically used to gauge students' aptitude in certain subjects. However, the MAP tests are unable to do this for our unique group of students. How can the information we obtain from them be more beneficial? We already have access, we already have WIDA to test English. All we're really testing with the MAP test is English as well. Maybe we could do some sort of a modification to say, you know what, I need more data from this MAP test. I'm already getting what I need for the English part from WIDA and Access maybe. And I learned a lot from the results of the alternative assessment in reading. Would it be beneficial to try testing students in language usage and math with the same accommodations? So, floor is yours. What are you thinking?
Well, I'll still do map tests, teach students how to take standardized tests. That's not the point of the map test, but I think any exposure to questions that look like the type that they would see on standardized tests, and if they are taught how to take standardized tests and how to answer those questions, process of elimination.
Exactly,
like that,
exactly.
Then, sure, I think it would.
And I think even for the MAP test coming up, it might be beneficial to say, hey, work on answering the easy questions, work really hard on answering the easy questions, because otherwise we won't be given the more challenging ones. What you thinking, dear?
I was thinking about that second question. Do MAP tests help some students persevere, even though they don't understand their scores will most likely not reflect their intelligence? My understanding of the MAP and WA assessment is that it tests standards, Common Core standards. And standards has actually no correlation with intelligence. It has to do with mastery of standards. So one of the things that I wondered about is that if a student has been exposed to a particular standard or set of words or academic words around that standard, or even assessments in the classroom or through magic school, I think they are more likely to persevere on the MAPS test because again, they have the level of background knowledge. It's almost like a way to scaffold a modification towards the standard. So in that case, I just want to name that I don't see any connection to Common Core or state standards and intelligence, but mastery.
Yeah, okay, thank you, that's excellent.
To go off of what Nicole was just saying is, you know, we could do a lot of messaging. I know there's a lot of messaging that does happen, but we could probably do more around that there isn't that correlation. Like, this doesn't tell me how smart you are. This tells me how you're doing from the last time you did something based on those standards. So are you increasing your knowledge base to help you be as intelligent as we know you are? It's really also, it shows engagement on this assessment as well. I think that's what all tests do.
Yeah.
You know, engagement on the assessment is critical because if they're not focusing on what it's asking and how to answer it, then they're not engaging fully to show us what actually their brain knows, their intelligence.
Yeah, thanks, Santiago. And you know what? I actually made that point in my next steps. My goal is actually to decrease this difference. We had a 6.6 grade level difference, which can happen with further refinements in all AI generators. Additionally, I am hoping that students realize their intellectual abilities and strive to improve their MAP scores.
I do want to go back to the last slide for a second.
Sure.
I think it was the second or the third point. It might have been the second,
there we
the
go.
third.
Yeah.
So what separates MAP from WIDA and Access is, one, the Access data is not always actionable in the moment.
Oh, okay.
Because they take the test and then we have to wait to get those scores. WIDA is a diagnostic, right? And it is a way for us to determine what that student may know, not around Common Core standards or other things, but just gives us a quick snapshot of their language.
It's around the WIDA standards.
Yes.
Yeah, so we can place them ELD 1,
Yes.
ELD 2, yeah.
The beauty of the MAP test is that gives us immediate information. And then, you know, you can go into the score reports and the student reports and MAP.
Yeah.
And then that tells you this is where the student did well, this is where the student needs to work. Right?
Exactly.
And so you can, through using AI, you can take that, what do students need to work on to improve, and immediately start providing that content.
That's why I'm doing the tutoring for math.
Yes.
Yeah,
exactly,
and taking their
exactly.
standards that they're weak on and saying, okay, let's fix these problems.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And
that's true.
the strength of math.
Right, and I'm glad you're pointing that out because obviously I'm gonna need to talk to our students before the next map test and say, hey, please be aware the map test does not measure your intelligence and you should try as hard as you possibly can.
100%.
Yeah, and I think,
I like to tell them that it shows us what they know, not how smart they are, but what they know at this point in time.
okay, that's a good way to put it too. Yeah.
But I think that's an important message, however you deliver.
Yeah, and I would get extremely angry if the only reason the kids had to take the map test was because we need the funding. I do not like that. I do not like putting a hardship on a kid because we need the money.
Map testing has nothing to do with funding, it has to do with how the state assesses our achievement and growth. It has no ties to money,
Really?
no ties to
Thank you
money.
very much for the education.
Pupil funding ties to your funding. Testing ties to how the state assesses us.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or district.
Funding is tied to people enrolled in our school on our total count. That's what funding is tied to.
Yep.
Oh, okay, thank you very much. I didn't know that. Okay, that's it. But if you have questions, anybody?
I have a couple
No,
of statements.
I appreciate this, and I find it interesting. I like to look at the data more closely that you found, just
Okay.
so I can see it in front of me, instead of just through the screen, through a projection.
I will share it with you.
Yeah, I would like to, even just answering those questions. How can we help the students understand what MAP is actually testing?
Okay.
Yeah. And MAP is used as our interim assessment because we know our students don't do as well on the standardized tests that are given or are rarely given to all of our kids. MAP is given to most of our kids,
Mhm.
if not all of our kids. It's the best we can do. CMAS is only given, and SAT are only given to certain grade levels, right?
Right, yeah.
So those are, and SAT right now is only in the post-secondary work readiness. For our achievement and growth, they use CMAS, which we only give to one grade level in the high school, if that.
Okay.
Because right now we only give CMAS science, we don't give CMAS language or English.
Yeah, I was told that. Yeah. Okay, I can, Santiago, I will share with you the entire PowerPoint. You'll have everything.
That'd be great.
Okay, and I'll share the spreadsheets are probably separate, so I'll share those separately with you.
Okay.
Okay? All right. Any questions?
I have a couple of statements.
Yes, please.
One, I think the fact that you're using Magic School for like a formative assessment project
Mhm.
quarterly or often enough
Mm-hmm.
to be able to inform instruction is the right way to hold hands with NWEA. Because again, then you can modify as you go to give kids descriptive feedback, grades, show their mastery before they take what's called each time they take the NWEA, it's like a summative end of year assessment on those standards.
Yeah.
So I think to use them both in tandem is the right combination instead of one or the other. My
Cool.
pushback that I just want you to kind of do a little bit more digging on is this fallacy that Magic School or AI is culturally sensitive or even checked for bias. One of the big things with AI, or one of the Achilles heel, and there's so many more positives than this one Achilles heel, is the cultural bias fact. And it's actually, there's a ton of research out there that it's about 70 to 80% correct in that cultural bias versus not. So I'm just naming, I don't know if I'd make such an absolute statement of AI is checked for cultural bias because it's the one thing that's kind of coming up to be an Achilles heel.
I actually just read that in Mr. Newman's assignment on the Colorado roadmap.
Yep.
Yeah, and but the passages that are put into the reading test, I looked through them, and then backed it up with the AI, and I was like, I don't actually see any cultural biases. I think this is safe material. Because I was really aiming for that. I was like, I know it can't be achieved all the time, but that was my goal.
Yep, and that's just my invitation to keep digging through that research and kind of see.
Yeah,
what's out
absolutely.
there.
That Colorado roadmap was genius. I loved reading that. That
And
was
I
really
think-
good.
I think my last statement that I was most impressed by, that I think as an organization we need to really think about, is this idea of that the SEL ties to assessment practices or how students see themselves as their habits of a learner or their capabilities of a learner.
Mhm.
Because I think the more either parallel or linked to those things and conversation and dialogue is had around it, the better we can do for students.
I agree, yeah.
It's one of the things that we've talked about quite a bit over the last year was educational trauma. Educational trauma that comes from misaligned work, misaligned assessments, things like that, and what does the student internalize?
Yep.
There's no wins here.
Yep.
Terry, I think you did an amazing job, and I'm
Thank you.
super happy.
Thank you.
I'm gonna go ahead and pause for you.
Yeah, you can